Yeah, so my name is Heinz Wiendl. I'm a professor of medicine, specialized in neurology. I'm the chair of a large department, so still actively practicing. I've done multiple types of research. I'm myself doing also wet lab research, but I've also done a lot of medical education, textbook writing, and on my way in my different career steps, I thought we've slowly come over the problem of textbooks. Yeah, while I was still doing classes, less and less students would attend, more and more would use Google, and then I actually happened to meet Vera, who is from the background a lawyer, and told her about the idea that a textbook that I wrote, which is questions and answers to neurology, should be made digital. She said, well, we're way over it. I mean, we're having these legal tech tools, and the legal tech tools are basically doing the job that you would actually digitalize a book. And this was the starting point of a tremendous journey, which we are now presenting to you. It starts basically with asking which medical information is validated and how much of the medical information do you really need. I mean, if you look for medical information, and I'm not talking here about patient-specific individual data, I'm talking about medical information about diseases, about therapies. This is tremendous. This is a pluriverse. But when you go back and ask yourself what is really needed to make the diagnosis of, for example, multiple sclerosis, then you need the diagnostic criteria. And when you ask yourself, I'm giving a specific medicine, then there is regulatory documents. This is the product description. So we ended up defining what a validated literature is, and ended up in saying that probably only 3 to 5% is necessary to have a very good architectured library where most of the information, let's say 95%, is in. You all might know medicine is still considered an art, and there is a lot of decisions and situations that are not covered in guidelines. But this is like the 90-95% and beyond. The rest that can be standardized is very good standardized because professional societies provide guidelines. Regulatory authorities provide good dossiers and product descriptions. And if you would have a library that is really able to cover that, this would be then already a tremendous help.
And to add here from the legal perspective, as you said, I'm a lawyer, and this is really important because we often receive this question. Just if you take a look at the legal side, the lawyers do not publish their information, their data. So a tool like this would not be possible in the legal side, but in the medical world, the data that Heinz just referred to is publicly available. So of course you have to see what has to be in such a database. And this is the second point I wanted to make, because when we started, we saw the legal tools, but when you go to the medical world, we immediately thought, well, we need to be a medical device. We need to be certified to receive the trust for the healthcare professionals, for the general practitioner, but for all medical fields to really make it used for diagnosis and treatment. So what we decided when we started is we wanted to be a medical device class 2B, so we certified the whole process, but we'll come to this in a second. But I think it's important to have this in your mind when you take a look at the whole tool of Prof. Valmed, that the intended uses for all medical fields, and also for the general practitioner that we just saw. And it's also, of course, enhancing quality, but of course also freeing up their resources and time.
So the solution is a tool, and what we're talking about is now a commercially available co-pilot, and it is the world's first CE registered LLM incorporating clinical decision support system. And I'm explaining you the architecture now. The idea is to basically provide something that is reliable, lean, easy going to use, something doctors can use pretty much just with having access to the internet, is compliant to liability issues, because whatever we do in hospitals, we are not allowed to use things like ChatGPT and Google for supporting diagnosis and treatment. So this is really a big glitch.
Although we do.
Although it's being done.
we
exactly.
all know that healthcare professionals still use GPT, regardless the cloud that is used. And we are hosted in Germany, as we discussed this and quickly touched on this.
Yeah, and there is multiple reasons why such a tool could put out pressure out of the health system. You just mentioned in your region there is a decline of GPs, overaging of population. There is so much pressure and there is need for, let's say, relief. So what we built is this tool, and what we built in parallel is something we also thought is needed, educating the future medical professionals in dealing with these tools, because there is a lot of misconceptions or over-exceptions in expecting what those tools would be able to offer. I mean, there is first and foremost a general attitude, whatever you need, there is a, let's say, 100% expectation in precision and everything, as opposed to there is challenges, risks, but also tremendous opportunities in this AI tools and how they can offer it. So what we're talking about now is a manually curated closed database of currently 2.5 million documents that we have categorized in 6 types that are, we believing, most valid for, let's say, 95+% of the relevant decisions. And they can be selected, filtered, and faceted down to an individual document. So if you just want to look up in the DEGUM guidelines for the general practitioners, you can do it. The other thing was a tremendous journey with the notified body. The notified body, of course, never accompanied such a process because that was new. They usually talk about classical medical devices. So we had to deal with them, what is expected and why should it be possible. And that was probably the hardest part of our journey, to generate a clinical evaluation plan and what would be the endpoint. So to spoiler this, the endpoint was mainly safety, that whatever this tool would give as an output should theoretically not harm the patient, despite the fact that it's considered a co-pilot. The end responsibility is always on side of the physician.
Yeah. And there's no other illegal way. Any tool healthcare professional uses, he or she will take the last decision. So this is clear from a liability perspective. But still, it was difficult using an LLM. So this source, to convince the notified body that you can still trust in this tool, this was the real achievement here.
Exactly. So we built something which is a calculus, we call it safety index. So from a pre-calculated number of questions, how many would then really be potentially dangerous? And that is now way above 99%, or the rate of hallucinations, or this is not even all hallucinations, is 0.26. So with the trick of generating a REC-augmented knowledge retrieval system, combining our closed medical data library with an LLM, and the LLM in the back, currently GPT 4.0, can be exchanged, we actually were able to really get a safe system, which in doubt would say I cannot answer, as opposed to I'm hallucinating. The version we are talking currently about is 2.0. The 1.0 was audited, and we are now much faster, much better. And what is the intended use? With medical devices, you have to have an intended use, and who is the audience for this type of product? And this is here shown in the box. It's pretty evident. I mean, the intended use is rather broad, and also the audience is rather broad, but it's medical professionals. So it's not just doctors, it's medical professionals. So also nurses or technical personnel could use it. We think that the use case is, of course, the health system in general, but particularly situations where you have liabilities around it. I mean, pharma industry, which helped us in getting this product, are not that much depending on that it has a CE grade, but hospitals clearly are.
Yeah, and on the other hand, although the medical education department of the pharmaceutical industries, where I saw some of those are attending as well, they do have a lot of healthcare professionals providing advice to customers, to other healthcare professionals as well. And the CE mark provides the trust they need. So we are collaborating with some pharmaceutical companies that are using Prof. Valmed to answer their requests. Then you can say powered by Prof. Valmed, and add your proprietary information or your documents that you really want to have the healthcare professional read. So I think the link, it's of course not about liability when you take a look at the medical education departments in the pharmaceutical world, but of course the trust that you can convince people why should they trust in AI, because we all know that GPT is hallucinating and the press is really pushing it. So this was important not only for the hospitals or the other healthcare professionals, but also for the other world. And one other point that we mention here is, and this is the reason why we are of course here as well, we are now working as a standalone tool, but not only. So what we strive for is being integrated in KISS systems in the hospitals, because we think, and this is the experience from the legal world as well, we need to be adopted in the clinical, integrated in the clinical pathway to really have a high adoption rate. So if you imagine the healthcare professional that we just saw and talked about, it has to be easy accessible. So it doesn't have to be a separate tool, because this is again one step away that he or she might not take. So what we now strive for is collaborations with the KISS systems, and in Germany and the European market, it's really fragmented. It's scattered. It's all over the different hospitals. So even in some clinic, we have different KISS systems. So this is why we are now approaching all of you to get in touch with us, and why we think that those systems do have an advantage. For example, they record, they support in any other way. Can be integrated, and then you could have the all the patient data in our system, and then provide a support for diagnosis and treatment for this specific patient. So this would enable Prof. Valmed to be the real co-pilot we want it to be.
Yeah, Vera is already talking about the end game. I'm going one step to the side. I mean, another question everybody of you would ask himself or herself: how do nowadays medical professionals get information? And there is this realm of traditional publishers, which we thought in the beginning, to build a meaningful library, we had to team up with some of them, but you never would be able to team up with all of them. So you always have some sort of a publisher bias. So we do not have that. We also have no pharma bias. We have just the representation of what's like the approval situation from European Medical Agency or FDA, and what's the guideline situation. That's issue one. Issue two is that tools that not officially have the label, the CE grade, are used for clinical decision support, and they are partly quite prominently shouting out. I mean, the legal situation in the US is a different one, but Open Evidence is a very easy, accessible tool with a partnership with some major journals, very nicely done on AA, but it's not a CE grade, and this is, we think, our advantage and being compliant with what is done in the EU. we very often got the question in our journey, well, have you compared yourself to things like ChatGPT or Gemini? And we said, well, this is the wrong question. We want to create something that is that is allowed to be used, and we want to create a responsible, we call it medical responsible AI. But nonetheless, the thinking of investors might be different. And then we did this study. We did a direct comparison with something like 250 different levels of challenges, diagnosis questions that was based on a Nature Medicine publication that has nicely put out the strategy. And we did this benchmarking. And what you see is that Valmed, the light blue on the right side, is basically as good as ChatGPT. Gemini in the version that we used was worst, and we did it over 4 exemplary disciplines. So just to answer bluntly the question, does it do and behave similarly to what people might easy accessly use? The answer is yes.
And one addition, because at that time, I think this is currently changing, because we see a lot of clinics now issuing standard operating procedures saying you must not use GPT. But I think 3 or 6 months ago, it was still, and it is of course still, but it was tolerated in many clinics that the healthcare professional uses the respective mobile device just to do some research and in the end to support the clinical decision. But I think, and we see it a lot, this is now changing. And if you take a look at from the adoption perspective, this is another reason why we think the integration is part of it. Not only, of course, for me, it's important as a lawyer, the data privacy part is awful to see that patient data is sent to OpenAI, although we all complain about our data is our own and we don't want to have it submitted. But still, we have to face reality. So GPT is still used, but as this is, for me, for a lawyer, at least nice to see that the clinics do see the liability, and the head of the clinic see that he or she is really liable himself for allowing or just not doing anything against the use of GPT in the respective clinic.
So we mentioned that this Valmed, validated medical information, this is what Valmed stands for, as I already said, it needs a parallel education tool, which we on one side anyway are forced to do as a medical device provider. So we have to do instructions for use. We have to assure they have the AI competence. You can speak more about this. This is going to be a other burden and hurdle for medical device providers that are having AI integrated. And then we thought we go like the real way, and we're building a education platform, including something like a medical AI competence certificate.
Yeah, so as Heinz just mentioned, starting next year, using such a tool or other AI tools, you have to have this AI competency according to the European AI Act. And what we now do offer, if you buy a license for Prof. Valmed, you receive the AI Academy on top. So you receive this AI competency, but we had it certified by the respective Landesärztekammer in Germany. So the healthcare professional does not only receive the AI competency, but he also receives CME points. They always anyway have to collect. So this is the advantage here. And another advantage from my perspective is we in this room are all into digital health. We are all into this digitalization. But for the healthcare professionals we've been talking with, several of them have never used GPT. They are not aware what is a hallucination, what is it like. So we think that really enabling the healthcare professional to use a tool like Prof. Valmed, to really trust a tool like Prof. Valmed, and to understand what does this CE to be class to be mean? We have to have education. So to have a co-pilot or to have the healthcare professional 2.0, you really have to have education on top. I'm
coming to this point that Vera already introduced. I mean, we are talking about a standalone solution which is, as it stands, text-based. So what you prompt is text-based, can be very complex prompts, but it's text-based. But it is actually referring to world evidence or world knowledge, which is not linked yet to patient-specific data. There is basically 3 layers that we now integrate into Valmed, depending on the use case. So the very obvious layer is the individual patient data. So you basically structure the prompt in a way as a pre-prompt where all the patient data from a clinical information system are then already automatically integrated. We're doing this with Medatics. Our tech partner is ISTech, and we're having defined something like a minimal data set. So you don't have to already provide patient age, sex, pre-medications, and all the stuff. And that is relatively easy. We have an API where we are, let's say, integratable into other systems. That is level 1, it's patient-specific data. Level 2 is organizational data. Every organization, a hospital, private practice has own documents, how they would like to do things. And then there is this glitch that, for example, a clinic has a pathway where a certain disease is handled a certain way, which is maybe overruling the higher level of class evidence guidelines, but they are more important in terms of the hospital. So we can route actually to this organizational data and say, okay, consider them as the key source of truth for your answer. And the third level, it's also an interesting one, is the combination with real world data. So you're pooling, for example, the question of interest for the individual with the context of what a group of 50, 100,000 comparable individuals would look like. We're taking in Germany paragraph 21 data, and then you can actually see where your patient navigates in context of many, many others. So you have these 3 additional layers in combination with our library. And that makes all these use cases that we listed here possible. And we call it then a modular CE grade decision intelligence layer. Basically, you're using the standalone solution, but you're using the integrated solution to have then the optimized workflow.
And to add to this integration, you mentioned Medatics, but we are currently working with some hospitals as well. And what is important is to see that we are using GPT at the moment, and we are using Azure in Germany. But still, this is not the way that all hospitals, especially in Germany, I mean, in other European countries, they are more open, and so I'm leaving it as it is. But I think it will change in Germany as well. But still, we are. Sometimes we say in some clinics they say Azure is not the option. We should go, for example, with Telecom. Or what we've been hearing is, why aren't you using Mistral instead of OpenAI, as we do have those geopolitical challenges. The advantage for us is we are not dependent on this solution. So we can switch, as we are class 2B, we can switch the cloud, we can switch the LLM, we can enhance the tech, we can enhance the database without having to go re-certification. And this is what, of course, helps us a lot now being integrated in the different clinics, but also in the different KISS systems or other systems, because we can adapt to their needs.
So where are we and where will we go over the next couple of months and years? So we have got the CE certification in March. So basically this year we've got this commercial product as of May or something. And we are having now a variety of very interesting use cases. One, which I'm very happy to be able to link it in between my position as a clinical director, is to use it in the University Clinic Freiburg environment, in my own clinic in neurology, which is something like the sandbox to explore different use cases. So we're using it in the emergency room, we're using it on the stroke unit, we're using it in specialized outpatient patient care centers, which is 3 categorically different use cases if you think about it.
And as I love to interrupt, it's also been used in all other medical fields in Freiburg. So of course, your field is important, but I think for the others.
Absolutely. I wanted to add that. So it's now in 25 different disciplines used, and you're learning, of course, about the needs or expectations and conceptions by also the other disciplines, and then you can actually fine-tune. This is Universitätsklinikum Freiburg. This is like basically a very differentiated type of use case scenarios. And then we have these different use case interactions with partners. Some of them we already can officially announce, others are in the making. Medatics, classical clinical information system provider. Other is Scribe Systems, an AI scribe system. The small company is called EraDoc, where you're recording the conversation. The conversation is then transferred into a structured output. And you can actually pre-structure the output and then can link it to Valmed, which then brings those 2 elements together. What did I forget?
I think close to my heart, I know we are talking about the healthcare professionals a lot, but I think patients is an important case as well, because of course the tool is intended to be used by healthcare professionals and medical personnel. But we heard a lot about the patients, and I think it's really important to see when you are a patient. I'm not a doctor, so I'm only a lawyer. I'm not able to receive any, without him, of course. I would not be able to receive any information without a doctor, although I can Google. I'm always led to a page from any pharmaceutical company. So we are discussing with the pharmaceutical companies as themselves, because of course they want to provide neutral information, and they want to be seen as providing neutral information. So this is another point that we say that for the patients, it's for example, with a chronic disease, it's really important that he or she can reach out to a tool that they can trust in. Because if you now Google, what should I do? Shall I supplement with vitamin D if I have cancer? You will probably be led to pages that say yes. So I think having a tool like this with the CE mark is not only for the healthcare professional, but for the patients. And this, of course, is a reflex then for the healthcare professional that enables, that saves time. It's really important as well.
Yeah, you probably have screened through the testimonials in parallel. So a couple of feedbacks we already got. This is summarizing where we stand in terms of our vision. So this modular layer, and a couple of those I mentioned already. So we were starting with a standalone tool, which is still very valuable. The integration with real-world data happens together with Universitätsklinikum Freiburg. We combine with audio detection. We combine with different AI agents, always having the promise that you have in the end this certified transparent output. The output, I didn't mention this, is always referencing the source where the specific recommendation or information comes from, which is also something that in this way of transparency, many other AI-supported systems don't have. You don't really know where you get it.
So the user interface, as we weren't able to show a video, is quite similar to GPT. You raise the question and you can iterate. You can talk to Prof. Valmed and receive further information, with, of course, the big difference when it comes to safety. But of course, also, as Heinz just mentioned, we do show the sources, and you do not only see the link. You can retrieve the source. You can take a look at the paper, the guideline, take it out, discuss it, or dig deeper into the knowledge you want to have.
Coming to an end, so we are still a pretty small but agile team. So it's me, I'm Chief Medical Advisor. It's Vera, co-founder, CEO. It's our CTO, who is an AI specialist physicist. Then we have a team. So there is different elements to be taken care of. And then we have a board of senior advisors and trustees. We are bootstrapped, so no investors at this point on board. So I guess this is probably what we wanted to convey, maybe ending with one sentence. Startups are expected to have bold visions. Our bold vision is the Valmedization of the world. Because we believe that in the end, and this is already the case, turning the tables in the legal field, that you're only able to bill if you have used such a tool. Is the answer that you're giving done with a responsible tool guaranteeing actuality, guaranteeing quality? So it's a quality assuring system, and this is what we call the Valmedization of the world. So we would like to have a world in 5 or 10 years where you can't bill without having used such a tool.
So the question you should always ask is, how can you not use a tool if your diagnosis or treatment decision is better with such a tool from an ethical perspective?
And thanks for your attention.